So far this season, Courtney Williams has been on a heater, if you will. Shout out to Mike Hughes for these numbers. He sent me a text letting me know that Courtney Williams was switched over to being a full-time point guard back in 2023 when she was in Chicago. Since then, she has the third most assists, the third most assist points created, the fifth most 2-point assists, and the second most 3-point assists in the WNBA over that stretch of time. If you remember in that conversation, Martin, we were talking during the finals, I said we might need to start putting some respect on Courtney Williams' names in these best point guard in the league conversations. I'm just going to flat out ask you, based on what we've seen so far this season, I believe she's at 18 assists, no turnover so far to start the year. Would you have Courtney Williams in your top 5 point guard list as of today?
Honestly, I think that she belongs in there right now based on Minnesota's success, based on those numbers. Was that through the first two games? Have they played 3 games or 2 games?
They might have just played a third
I think
game.
they just played their third.
That
Was the first 2 games, right?
Yeah,
Her
that was the
19,
first 2 games, 19
I think
assists.
she had a turnover in the last. I think I was watching. Who did they just play? I was watching it and I saw her commit a turnover, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
there's a turnover." But she might belong in there. And honestly, when I had to think through this, I think it's starting to I think doing this really made me realize we're kind of lacking in the elite point guard department in the WNBA right now. I don't think we have too many, and I think that's part of why not to discredit Courtney or say this is the reason why, but I don't know if we have a whole slew of great point guards. It's kind of a top heavy list.
Sure.
Caitlin and Chelsea Gray are by far the 2 best point guards.
Yeah.
And then part of what makes the point guard conversation get a little dicey is people are changing positions, right? Sabrina should be one of the top point guards, but now you've got Natasha Cloud, who was also top 5 in assists last season, could make an argument for one of the best point guards, and she plays with Sabrina. So Sabrina's point guard position is kind of compromised now. She's not really a full-time point guard anymore. You look at Alyssa Thomas, who is kind of a part-time point guard, number 2 in assists last year. Obviously, she is a forward, but playing somewhat of a point guard role is really where she thrives and looks the best. So I think, I don't know. I'm looking at my list and thinking of okay, who are the top point guards? We know Chelsea Gray, Caitlin Clark, easily by far the top 2. The rest, it's kind of up in the air. This is what I put down about Paige. So you mentioned the stat earlier. The other thing with her in her first 3 games, she's the 3rd player in history to have a double-double in points and assists in her first 3 games. Her efficiency is going to keep standing out. Point guard Paige is a real thing. And as I mentioned before, she's so unselfish and so willing to not force the issue and so willing to get people involved that Paige might be soon enough in the conversation for top 5 point guard, just based on her efficiency, assist to turnover ratio. And she kind of just plays it safe a little bit. And obviously she can still score the ball. I just think the list is kind of interesting. Do you throw Skylar in there? Do you consider Courtney Vandersloot? I just think after the obvious ones, Sabrina is kind of compromised, and with her own teammate, even Natasha Cloud, how do you decide who's over the other in terms of a point guard? Because Natasha Cloud probably slot her more as a true point guard than a Sabrina. But Sabrina's been playing point up to the up to now. So, Alyssa Thomas, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air. But all things considered, I think Courtney Williams could be in there as maybe number 4 or number 5. I think the way she's been playing and the way her team has been successful with her as the point guard means that we do need to show her some more respect in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look right now. Again, we're 3 games into the season. You take a look right now at who the leaders are in assists per game. Caitlin Clark's number 1 at 9. Courtney Williams is right there with 8.7 a game. Natasha Cloud's right behind her at 8.5 a game. So, and then Paige is 4th with 6.7. They're the only 3 guards in the league right now averaging at least 8 assists a game. Courtney Williams, I mean, I would say that she's a top 5 point guard. And I would say, like, and again, to your point, you know, there's not a lot of, because of the shifting of positions, there's not a lot of like clear cut point guards, right? Because like now, anything like I would even bet the question, like, given her role now in LA, does Kelsey Plum fall into the point?
Yes, she is, but it's great. It's interesting because I'll let you go. But Kelsey Plum would be higher on the overall players list than
Right.
she would point guards list. And I mean,
Sure.
she just became a point guard, so small sample size. But that's a great point because as a player, she's now in the point guard. I forgot to put her down. She's another one that's kind of, you got to consider it because she's playing the point guard position now.
Yeah, even you take a look at Alicia Gray in Atlanta. Like, she's been playing more point guard because Jordan Canada has been out with dealing with some injuries over the past. So, like, does she count? You mentioned Alyssa Thomas already. Skylar Diggins, another player who, like, you probably don't consider to be a point guard, but she runs the point in Seattle. So it's like, when it comes to the point guard conversation, it's almost kind of like, well, just who played point guard the most of this season, and then let's rank them that way. Because if there is a lot of moving around and things of that nature. Regardless though of like who is or is not in that conversation, when you look at not just what she's done, obviously, to start the season, these first 3 games, but when you look at just how effective she is and how efficient she is with running this offense, like Courtney Williams is a point guard. And I said this about Natasha Cloud a couple years ago when she was entering free agency, when she ended up going out to Phoenix. There are very few point guards I think that you could take off of the team they're on, put on any other team in the league, and they would be just as effective, and the team would be just as good, if not better. I firmly believe Natasha Cloud is on that list, and we're seeing that in New York right now because of her ability to just not just take over games, but just facilitate and be a defender. Courtney Williams is on that list for me as well. Like, if you took her off of Minnesota and you put her in New York, or you put her in, you know, Indiana, you put her anywhere, she's just as effective, and the team is just as good, if not better, because she's just that good at understanding what the team needs and then giving that, right? She knows when to defer to Fee because Fee's the best player, but she also knows when she needs to just take it in her own hands and take over basketball games, and we saw that in the finals last season. I don't know how wide the gap is. I know it's a pretty wide gap as far as first and second to third is. I don't know how wide the gap is between Courtney Williams and whoever you think the third best point guard in the WNBA is. But if Courtney Williams keeps this up by season's end and it results in a championship, which a lot of people think the Minnesota Lynx can have, Courtney Williams should be slotted into that conversation as a top 3 point guard in the league at that point, because what she's doing, I mean, Cheryl Reeve even made the joke after game 2 because someone asked her at that time, again, she had 18 assists, no turnovers, and Cheryl Reeve was like, well, she had 19 turnovers and no assists in training camp, so she's probably got the turnovers all out the way. Now, she did have 6 turnovers against Dallas the other day, but again, like that's not the expectation. That's not, we're not going to see that more often than not. Courtney Williams is really, really, really good, and it's almost making me wish I didn't say that the Minnesota Lynx aren't going back to the WNBA finals, because I will admit I probably put a little bit too much stock into the movement that happened around them and not just focusing on what they had. Because as you mentioned to me, what they have is still very, very good.
Yeah.
If not better, just because Nafis has gotten better, Courtney Williams has gotten better. Like, they are still a formidable opponent. And I might be eating crow come All-Star break. When we look back halfway through the season, we take a look at those predictions and see how on track or not they're at. I might be looking silly at that point come All-Star break, because they look great. Like and a lot of that has to do not just with Nafisa Collier, but with Courtney Williams as well.
Absolutely. No question about it. That's why in that clip I mentioned when we talked about them last year during the finals, the way Courtney Williams was balancing the responsibility of scoring, because everyone talks about her mid-range ability and how she can get to a shot, and she's still got that. She's still doing that. But when I was watching her during the finals and throughout the playoffs, I'm like, guys, her playmaking is incredible right now. She was making some beautiful reads and passes in the 2-man game, in the pick and roll game. You were really watching a true point guard really operate, and she just deserves so much credit. And to your point, and I'm glad that you brought this up as a topic and as a thing for us to think about, because you're right. And as we started talking about it before and thinking about the point guard conversation in the WNBA, again, it's top heavy, but the position is being kind of tampered with and moved around. And as we've talked about, different people are playing point guard or moving to shooting guard and not being as much of a point guard. And Courtney Williams is owning that point guard, lead guard role in Minnesota. And as good as they are, as great as they are, and you watch them, yeah, it's a lot of Nafisa Collier, but Courtney Williams is at the point of attack, really making sure that thing stays humming.